back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to do a cartridge holder, and I'm going to show you how I do these without any stitching, and they work great. Everything stays nice and tight, and I'm going to show you how to do one. The one we're going to do is you could either secure the ends with rivets, or you could secure the ends by putting a couple of lock stitches in it, but we're going to use rivets, so no stitching whatsoever. And these are the kind that you can hang anywhere, so you can hang them on your gun or your belt or whatever you want to do, and you can just keep reloading them as you go up to the shooting bench. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so this was just a little piece of scrap, and I cut some straps a 1/2 inch wide, and they're about 32 inches long. Now that's for 12 cartridge holders, and I cut my pattern when I made it. I made it 3 inches wide by 8 inches long, and I put 12 holes or slots. They're 1/2 inch slots, and I used the slotted punch for that. So they're just 1/2 inch slotted holes down through there, and that's why this is a 1/2 inch. The strap's a 1/2 inch. Then I measured down a 1/2 inch from the top and found the center side to side and put a mark there. And that's going to be for my strap that holds everything together, or holds it on your holster or your belt or whatever you're going to hang it on. So that's my pattern, and I did find center side to side, and I centered those up side to side. There's what it looked like when I transferred it to the leather. Then I went ahead and punched all those slots, punched the hole in the top. Then I went ahead and cased it. I cut 2 of them out so I could have one of them ready to show. So I cased it. There's my hole in the top. There's my slots, my 12 slots, and then I did some decorative stamping around that with a veining tool and a seating tool. So just give it a little bit of decoration. I could go ahead and put some dye on that right now, but I'm not going to, because I want to leave this natural. This is 9 to 10 ounce leather veg tan, and this is probably 3 to 4 ounce. So my strap is not near as thick as what I'm using as my holder itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to start by, I'm going to have to mount this on this end down here. So I'm going to have to put either a stitch in there, a lock stitch. As I put that through that slot, you'll see it comes back on the back side. So I'm either going to have to put a rivet in there or some kind of lock stitch. And as I said in the beginning, I wasn't going to do any stitching on this. So I am going to put a rivet. I'm going to see if a 3/8 rivet will work. If not, I've got some, or 3/16 I mean. If not, I've got some 5/16. But I'll take my poly board and I'll make sure this is folded over and straight. I'm leaving about 5/8 of an inch of that hanging over. Take my 1/8 inch punch and I'll go ahead and punch through both pieces. And then put my rivet through from the back. And let me get my setter out, and I can go ahead and put the cap on. And that 3/16 rivet's perfect. So there's what it looks like on the front side, and there's what it looks like on the back side. Now you could also round this off the strap, make it look nicer. And you could do that at the beginning, or you could do it, whenever. But let's go ahead and I'll show you how I do these without putting them in and stitching. You'll see a lot of times they'll be stitched like almost a Z pattern. So the key to doing it this way is you put it through, attach it or anchor it like we did the first one. Now you may need some type of scribe or something to open up that slot a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll pull that pretty snug. I'll take my stylus and I'll just open that up ever so slightly, just so I can get the other end of this started. So I'm putting it back through the exact same slot. So you're putting 2 thicknesses of that through the same slot, and all you got to do is get a corner started. And once you get a corner started in there, you can take a small pair of needle nose pliers, go to the back side, push that down a little bit, and you can get a hold of that corner that come through there. It is gonna be very snug. That's the whole point, is so that it doesn't come loose. So you may need to work that. Once you get the hang of it and you get doing 2 or 3 of them, it'll help, especially if you open these up prior to putting any of them in, because when you use your slotted punch, it'll want to shrink that down a little bit. So let me try pushing that through with the stylus here, the strap. And the first one always seems to be the toughest one. Especially when you're on camera. So we'll go ahead and pull that all the way through. Once you get it started, go ahead and pull that through until you get down to start making a small loop, and then take whatever caliber cartridge you want to use. These are 38 specials, and they're just lead tip, round nose target loads. Put it where you want it, and I want this to be fairly centered in the cartridge. You can push them all the way down if you want. However, you're to your liking, your personal preference. And that first one, you want to make sure it's nice and snug. And remember how tight that went in there? That's going to keep that from backing out. So there's the first one. Now, the second one, all we're going to do is I'm going to make sure that slot's open. Should have done that on the first one before I started. But now we're going to go through the back to the second slot, and we're going to pull that through the front all the way. So you're going to make it nice and tight on the back. There is no spacing on the back. Then we'll pull that tight against that cartridge. That's why I left that cartridge in there. I'll hold that thumb against that. Now I can take the other end of my strap, just like we did on the first one, and like I said, it's easier on the second one, especially if you open that up a little bit. Grab a hold of that. Once you get it started, you got something to grab a hold of. You start pulling it through the second time. Same thing, pull it down to a loop. Grab a cartridge, place it approximately where you want it, and start snugging it down. So there's two. So you can see how simple that is without going through a lot of stitching. Some people think they'll pull out if you don't have cartridges in there. Once you leave those cartridges in there just for overnight, I have not had any of mine ever pull out, no matter what size they were, whether they were 12 gauge shotgun shells or 45 Colt 9mm. Never had any of them do that. So again, I'm going to pull that back through to the next slot, pull it nice and tight, pull it good and snug. I'm going to roll that over to the last cartridge, hold my thumb there, open that slot up a little bit, and push that through. You can see how much easier it gets as you work at it and go down the cartridge holder. So there's three. So you can do it pretty quickly, especially the longer you go, the quicker you'll get at it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of these through, and I'll speed this up, and then I'll stop it to regular speed when we get toward the end here. Alright, so I'm down to the last slot here. So I'll pull it through just like I did the rest of them. There's what the back looks like. All nice and snug, good and tight. Those are not going to fall out of there. Put the last loop in for the last cartridge. And again, it's always better to have this strap long than to come up short, obviously. So I'll pull that good and tight. And then I'm going to flatten this out because it's going to, as tight as you have it, it's going to want to naturally curl up. So you can flatten that out. And I'm going to pull this good and tight. Put it on my poly board and put my hole in there for my rivet while I have it good and snug, because I want to keep that snug. So I'll go ahead and stick that rivet through the back, so now this can't move. The strap's locked in there. I can lay that on my anvil. Place my cap on. And set my rivet. So there's the other end. There's the beginning, and there's the finished end. Now all I have to do is cut the excess off. And there's my 12 cartridges on that 3x8 piece of leather. Now, the only thing I have left to do is put my strap on. And I'm going to make it 6 to 8 inches long. And I'll just tie a knot in that. And I will use a pair of needle nose to make sure I've got that good and snug. Don't want that coming off. Then I can cut that. I'll cut them at a slight angle. I just think it always makes it look nicer. So there's, you could wear it around your wrist, you could put it on your gun belt, you could just hang it on your handle of your gun, whatever. You can see that it wants to hang curved because that shows you how snug and how tight you have that. You can lay those out flat and stretch those out, and it'll start relaxing a little bit. But you can see, you can take your thumb and push on that cartridge and push it right out. Now it's really snug, but you want it snug. When you put another cartridge in, it's going to be snug. You don't want those falling out. So those are not going to fall out of there. They are good and snug. And like I said, I always, when I make them, and I do the same thing for a gun belt, and then I'll attach that to the gun belt. And when I make them, I let them sit like that with the cartridges in them overnight, and that'll help relax that leather to that shape. You could moisten those and kind of wet form them if you wanted to, but the only thing is if you had some dummy cartridges that would be okay, but I don't want my brass on my cartridges getting wet, and this works for me just fine making them dry like this, but you could wet form them also. So here's what we end up with. Here's what we started with when we were messing with it. Just a couple pieces of scrap, and then here's what we ended up with when we were finished. So that keeps you 12 extra cartridges. You can make it for 6, you can make it for 5, 10, whatever you want to make it for. I know a lot of the shooting, Western shooting, they do 5 rounds. They won't let you load 6. They won't let you put 1 on the hammer. So you could do 10 if you wanted, and that would give you 2 loads, 2 times to load. So it's whatever your personal preference is. Alright, so another project down. I just love these things. They're so easy to make. It doesn't take a lot of material, and they're so useful and handy. And they look good. I mean, you could dye this and leave it natural. You could do whatever you wanted to. And if you wanted to, you could actually pre-dye this and make it two-tone. So you could do black with your strap being brown, or brown with the strap being black, whatever. And that would look good also. So I appreciate you coming along. Appreciate you watching as always. And as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.